Hey there, it's Joan's Kitchen. We're in Joan's Kitchen today, and again I have my guest chef, Mr. Billy Griffin, visiting from Galesburg, Illinois. Bill loves to cook, and he's got a couple of recipes that he's really well known for, and the one that we're making today is one that he calls Sweet Billy's Chili. And Bill, you were telling me that you won awards for this chili?
I won a chili contest. I only entered one chili contest, and I won that one. It was at our church actually put it on, but we had entries from 3 counties, and it was just a fun thing. But since I won that one, I haven't entered anymore because I like to say I retired undefeated with that.
That's always a good strategy. So Bill, why don't you go over the ingredients that you use in your Sweet Billy's chili?
Sure. And as I begin, I'll begin by saying that I looked at a lot of different recipes, and there's probably a gazillion of them. Everybody makes it a little bit differently, and I took some of the items that I like the most from the different ones and combined them, and I trial and error, I experimented, and this is the one that I came up with. So what we're using here is, first of all, we use the meat. We use fresh ground beef. We've got about 2.5 to 3 pounds, and you can kind of vary any of these on your taste as you go, but that's what I use. And then we use, I think I'll just start at this end to work way down. Now this is a gigantic jar here, but actually what I use is some chicken flavored bouillon and just like 1 or 2 bouillon cubes, or in this case it was a teaspoon.
This is powdered bouillon. So in this case, the powdered bouillon, 1 teaspoon of the bouillon is the same as a bouillon cube.
Yeah, so that we use that. The 2 spices that I really like here are the cumin and the marjoram. Marjoram comes in ground, which this is. It also comes in leaf marjoram. Many of you know that. Don't use a lot of it. About, what did we say, a teaspoon that's on there?
Teaspoon of each,
yeah. There they are in that bowl, all displayed very nicely. We sprinkle them around. I use, when I cook the meat, I use salt, about the amount of salt you would generally put in that much ground beef. Also, I like to use tomato sauce. Now these are little cans. It's about 40 ounces there, and of course it comes in bigger cans too. Again, you can make a large batch of this or a small batch of this, whatever you want. I don't like to go overboard on the beans, but I do like some beans in the chili. This is Stater Brothers chili beans. You don't have to get the most expensive ones. The cheap ones will work just fine. And these, I don't know if they're kind of an in-between price or not.
It's the house brand from the local grocery store.
We don't have those in Illinois, that brand. At least I've not seen them. And then diced tomatoes. I have 1 can here. Sometimes I use 2 cans according to your taste. We'll kind of see what that looks like as we go along and possibly add some more. The water here, I use between 3 and 4 cups of water to cook the onion and pepper, which are right here, and we'll cut those up. Finally, we'll dice them up and then cook them in the water, and then I'll put the ground beef in and cook it in the water. Let it all get good and done, caramelize, and then we'll drain the grease and the fat off of the beef. And then we'll start putting the other ingredients in. We'll show you as we go. I like a little bit, about a teaspoon of kitchen bouquet. And here we have about 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar. That's where the sweetness comes in Sweet Billy chili. If you've probably never tried brown sugar in it before, this could be something new for you. Try it, and I hope you'll like it as much as I do.
So I just want to say that I'm really curious to see how this is done. I've never seen the cooking technique where the beef and the onion and the green pepper is cooked in water. So I'm thinking that might actually take a lot of the fat out of the meat, because then you end up draining it. So I'm very curious to see how that's going to go. The other thing I wanted to mention is that what Bill did not use is chili powder, which is a traditional ingredient in most chilies. Probably every single chili recipe that you're going to look at is going to have chili powder. Chili powder is actually a combination of spices. It's typically some type of a red chili that's ground up. And one of the things about chili powder, if you've ever noticed, from one jar of chili powder to another, the heat level is going to be different, and that's because it's completely dependent on how hot the original chilies were that they used. So what else goes in this chili powder? There's usually garlic, a little bit of oregano, a little bit of cumin, which is one of the spices that Bill's using here, and some salt and pepper. Now Bill does not use chili powder per se in his recipe, but I do want to point out that these chili beans are beans that are seasoned, and there is a little bit of chili powder in the seasoning. So most of the chilies that you use are not going to use these prepared chili beans. They're just going to use plain old beans, whether you're going to be cooking them from dry or be using canned beans that you've drained. So I just wanted to point that out. And we're gonna go ahead and chop some things up here, and we're gonna get back when it's time to start cooking the beef and the vegetables in the water. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Hey everybody, we're back. We have our water here inside of this cast iron pot, and it's boiling. And so Bill is gonna show us his technique for cooking the ground beef and the onions and the green peppers. So take it away, Bill.
Certainly. First thing I do is I'm going to cook exactly those 3 ingredients. And what I like to do is put the ones in first that take the longest to cook. Starting with the green peppers. We've diced them in fairly small pieces. Some people actually like larger pieces, but I like the small pieces. And when they caramelize and cook for a long period of time in here, it'll be, thank you, Joan, it'll be hard to find them. And then we're going to add the onion. Same way. Now those can cook for a long time. And we did. I'm going to use this for here, but thank you. I did put a little bit of salt in, and I'll put a little bit more in. It helps the boiling, and it helps with the flavor too. Then I'll take my hamburger and put it in kind of like chunks. And then as it starts to brown, I'll break it up into even smaller chunks. Now some folks like a little bit of chunks of meat in their chili, but I like to kind of keep it pretty fine. So I'm just adding a little bit at a time here.
So while Bill is doing this, I'll mention that a lot of people have their own personal taste for how much meat and what kind of meat they want to put in here. And for chili, a lot of people like to have meat that's really coarsely ground, and a lot of grocery stores actually carry hamburger that's not ground as finely as you would use for hamburgers that you're making, but you'll see it in there that says chili meat. So what they're doing is they're taking the meat grinder, they're still putting the same meat in, but they're putting it through bigger holes. So it's kind of the difference between maybe like an angel hair pasta and a spaghetti. It's just a much thicker consistency for that. And chili, the origin of this dish was actually something called chili con carne, which is the American way of saying chili with meat. And we think it started in North Mexico or Texas. And chili con carne is basically just chunks of meat, which is usually beef, that's braised in some kind of a chili sauce. It's developed over the years into the dish that most of us are familiar with as chili. There's a lot of things that you can serve with chili. Some people serve it on top of spaghetti. Personally, I like to serve it on top of rice. It can also just be standing on its own in a bowl. And some of the accompaniments that are traditional with chili include grated cheese, chopped onions, and oyster crackers. Is there anything else that I'm missing that you could put in there?
Oh, I'll tell you, the list probably goes on and on. I've seen carrots in there.
Huh.
Yes, I've seen all kinds of things in there. But another point that you were making about the healthy aspect of that, the reason I use the water is that the grease in the hamburger and the water would drain off later, and that makes it healthier. And another thing that you can also use is ground turkey. It doesn't have quite the cholesterol and fat in it, and I've often used 2 parts ground beef and 1 part ground turkey. What we're going to do with this pot right now is we're going to let those onions completely cook, the peppers completely cook, get all caramelized, and the meat completely browned until we're ready to put in the other ingredients. This will take a little while. When we come back, we'll put the rest of them in, mix it up, and we'll be able to let it sit and cook for quite a while.
So we'll be back when we're ready to drain this and add the rest of the ingredients. So bye for now, and we're back. So we've cooked the ground beef and the peppers and onions in the water with Bill's technique. And cameraman, if you could zoom in here to show us what's in the pot. Whoops, that's hot.
No, you don't want to touch that.
And so you can see the meat is completely cooked. It's all crumbly, and the onions are translucent and the green peppers are soft. So now we're gonna start adding the other ingredients in, and Bill has a special order for putting the ingredients in. He's got everything lined up for me. So I'm gonna put the things in, and he can talk about what it is that we're putting in.
Sure, you can just sprinkle those seasonings, and as I put each one in, I kind of blend it around so they don't get all bunched up in one part or the other. You know, one thing we didn't talk about, Joan, yet, and we will, is hot sauce. A lot of people use hot sauce or don't use hot sauce. My personal opinion is it's called sweet Billy chili, not hot Billy chili. So I like to leave it sweet, and then I usually set out a can of Tabasco or anybody's favorite hot sauce if they want to add the heat to it. Let's go. We've got some beans here.
Yeah, so the next thing we're adding here is the chili beans. So these are the beans. These are red kidney beans, which have a little bit of chili seasoning in them. So even though Bill is not adding plain chili powder into this recipe. There is a tiny bit of chili seasoning that is in these canned beans, and that's what makes them chili beans as opposed to just plain old canned beans. And
Now for some liquid.
So we're gonna put in next our petite diced tomatoes, and Bill's wife Sherry just informed me that this was a modification to the original recipe because she doesn't like to have big chunks of tomato in her chili. So we're starting with these petite diced tomatoes instead, and Bill's gonna give that a stir.
Absolutely.
And then we've got all these little cans of tomato sauce that we're gonna add in here. You, of course, could use a bigger can. This is just what we happen to have on hand, which is why we use those. And Rich, I don't know if you want to come over here and take a look. It's starting to actually look like chili, even though the flavors and the seasonings haven't quite melded together yet. I have 2 more cans of tomato sauce to add to the mix here.
If some of you have seen some of the chili cook-offs like they have down south, some of those folks get really serious about it. They've got big trailers and they've got their own secret recipes and ingredients. And one of the big competitions that they have down there, they don't allow beans. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah. You can't put beans in it.
And so next up, we're going to have our brown sugar.
Absolutely.
So this is what's going to make it Sweet Billy's chili.
That's right.
And I'm going to let you do the honors with the kitchen bouquet.
Okay. And again, we'll just put
The
that
kitchen
around.
bouquet is an ingredient that's called a browning sauce, and this helps to give it the final color. And then the last little thing that we're going to add in here is our chicken bouillon. So chicken bouillon is essentially chicken flavoring with salt added. So if you diluted it just with water, it would give you just like a plain chicken, like a, not even a bisque, just like a chicken consomme, like a clear chicken broth.
And people ask me, why the chicken broth? And to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure, except that the recipes that I really like had that in there. So I thought, yeah, I'll try it.
My guess is it probably adds a little bit of flavoring, and it definitely adds a little bit of salt. One of the things about chicken stock or chicken bouillon that I would like to mention, it's an ingredient that my mother always had on hand. And some people think, oh, you have to have real chicken stock or it has to be homemade chicken stock, and that's not the case. My mother, my grandmother always used chicken bouillon cubes, and actually I've cooked in Italian kitchens where the nonnas also find bouillon cubes perfectly acceptable. It's a way to keep that ingredient, the chicken stock or chicken base, on hand, and it doesn't spoil. It lasts pretty much forever, and it's just a good ingredient to have on hand. So we're gonna go ahead and let this cook. It's gonna be here on the flame for at least 3 hours to let all those flavors come together. So we're gonna come back when we're ready to serve it and taste it. So we'll see you in a bit. Well, our chili has been simmering away for almost 3 hours, and we are ready to taste it and see if Sweet Billy chili is going to live up to its prize-winning reputation. So let's give it a go, Bill.
Okay, let's look in here, folks, and see what we got. And there it is.
The big
Ooh,
reveal.
How about that?
Looks yummy.
It probably, our friends in Illinois where its heat index is 103, probably doesn't look quite as good as it would if it was January back there, but we sure hope it tastes as good as it looks.
So we're going to do a little taste for each of us here.
I might add, folks, that you can't overcook this stuff either. You can cook this again and warm it up tomorrow. It'll taste better, and you can keep it for 2 or 3 days at least if you have it left by the end of there.
Okay, so let's see. We've got our little tasting spoons here. Yum.
It's good, folks. I wish you could have a bite. It really is. It came out well, didn't it?
It's hot, not from spiciness, but from heat, but it's really tasty. It's not spicy at all. It's got a nice sweet flavor, which I think the name Sweet Billy's chili applies to, and it's really delicious. We're gonna go and have some for supper right now. We've got some grated cheese and some crackers to have with it. and I hope you'll give it a try. I'll have the recipe linked, and you've got one final thing to say?
Yeah, what you can do also with this, folks, is you can, after it cools, you can put it in freezer bags and freeze it, and it'll stay for a long, long time, and have it whenever you get, because that's a big pot of chili to eat, although I'm going to try my best to do what I can. Also, I'd like to thank our good friends, Richard and Joan Qualls, for allowing me not once but twice to be here, and I might add, I do my best job on the third try, just for future reference. And my lovely wife Sherry that came with us, they've been the wonderful hosts, and we've really enjoyed it here, and thank you. Hope you'll continue to watch Joan again.
Well, thank you, Bill. It's been our pleasure, and from Joan's Kitchen, signing off for now. Until next time, ciao for now.